had several magazines coming to Suge's Club 666 after the fight that night. So I gave my ticket for the fight to David Kinner for someone else. And so I was not at the fight. I was at the club. If I had gone to the fight, then I would have been in that caravan going to the club, and my son was with me. But I was early at the club waiting for these various news people to come in. And one of the security guards came over to me and very quietly said, Papa G, Suge and Tupac have been shot.
And so here I go to the studio Sunday afternoon. It's about 1 or 2 in the afternoon. I haven't heard nothing. I'm waiting at the studio. Everyone, the runners, all the other engineers, producers, everyone's at the studio waiting. Next you know, we're getting bombarded with phone calls, left and right. Did you guys hear? Did you hear what happened? It's like, nah, what happened? Everyone from Death Row's calling. Did you hear what happened? Did you hear what happened? Like, nah, what happened? Put it on MTV. Put the TV on. Turn the news on. Tupac got shot. It's like, what?
I didn't even wait for my car. I grabbed a cab and went to the hospital. And I was there. I saw Tupac only very briefly, and then I was in with Suge, talking to Suge, and his mother was already there. This was prior to Afeni coming. And then the lawyers suggested that I get on a plane, and I came immediately back to Los Angeles and opened the office to start fielding press from this end. And I was in shock the entire time.
Last time I saw him was on a hospital bed in Las Vegas, Nevada. But I want everybody to know that Makaveli the Don was a soldier to the very end. Resilient to the very end. For those who weren't there, would have been proud of him to the very end. You know, he stayed strong to the very end.
Tupac's story is a tragic story. Somebody who clearly had, you know, the talents of the universe and had an amazing burden of history on his shoulder, you know, and at the same time was locked into a situation almost, or locked himself into a situation, we don't even know. You know, we can't ever know the real truth, where his end was almost foretold in a way, you know? I mean, there's a lot of inevitability looking back on it now that he would meet the kind of end that he did.
Right after Tupac died, I was working in the studio with Snoop Dogg on the Dogfather, and I did a little duet with Snoop Dogg that was basically an eulogy for Tupac, and they used some stuff Tupac did. But the whole idea behind it was they were trying to bring peace to the hood, Snoop and Tupac, and get out all the gangbangers quit killing each other. You know, soldier story.
It is amazing how important Pac remains and how immediate he still feels years after his death.
You can hear it in rap songs that don't even just come out of the West Coast. You got people that Tupac smashed on, N.I.G.G.A.Z. They talking about how much they like Tupac.
I'm not going to say the guy was an angel, and there's people that definitely had their beefs with him because he was going to bring that sort of drama and that sort of heat.
Everything in the hood is about respect. The fact that he smashed on these fools on his music, and years later, they come back and do tribute songs to him, says a whole lot about the power of him, even in death, even in transition.
Pac was bigger than Pac.
In death, Pac has been idolized. He has come to represent the ideal man who found ways to speak about a far from ideal world.
After his murder, I was quite consumed with how he was being perceived as a Jesus-like figure, as a figure who was seen as a revealing, as a healing, as a divisive and destructive figure. So all that concentrated in one person.
Everybody, I don't care who you are, when you look at Tupac, you kind of like, wow, I wish I could be like that. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people wish that they could be as free and as open as he was.
The women loved him and the guys wanted to be him.
Because of the things he said and what he stood for. You know what I mean? I think that's why he became one of the most powerful hip-hop artists out there was, because not only was he partying and having a good time, he stood for something.
You know, you could think of him as like a hood professor, because, you know, a lot of the times, well, for the most part, a lot of people in our communities aren't educated in the so-called school system, you know, about how to survive and what they're facing and who their real enemy is, you know, who's responsible for disenfranchising them, putting them in jails, you know, leading them to graveyards. But Pac spoke up on those things.
He was like the voice of our generation, you know what I mean? Like, basically, everything that everybody's going through that people want to say, he's saying it and saying I go through it too. And, you know, and at the same time, let me tell you about this. This is even more fucked up. I bet y'all didn't know this.
From Brenda's Got a Baby to other songs like, you know, he expressed things in Dear Mama, other songs like Hellraiser. He spoke about all these different issues.
But when you think about Tupac, you think about like greatness, you know what I'm saying?
His skill level as a rapper was so tight that he could keep people's imaginations and keep people's interest and kind of like, you know, get that love from the community.
You know what I mean? Because that's the way he was. He was an MC who was just one guy, like a Biggie, you know what I'm saying? Like guys that don't really come around too often and just have a gift, and their gift was to be able to put what's going on in the world and what's going on in themselves and write it on a piece of paper and put it to beats.
Tupac was a once-in-a-generation type of person, and people, I think, recognize that from the very start.
I can't compare him to Malcolm or to Martin except to say that they all had valuable lives. They treated every day of their lives as though every moment was important.
So in death, Tupac has indeed become larger than life, precisely because his own living has been terminated, but yet the life of his image and his symbolism continues.
At the time of his death, Pac was coming into his own as a powerful articulator and advocate of social injustices. People who knew him believe he would be using these skills in some way if he were alive today.
Tupac said in the year 2000, I'm gonna be sitting across the table from the rest of the other candidates running for president. I believe that that's part of the reason why he was assassinated.
You know, I think Pac would have said, you know, he would have said something that a lot of folks in power would have been frightened about and found even dangerous. He would have been subversive because he came from that background.
And if I can sell 2 or 3 million records, I can get 2 or 3 million votes. If I can get 2 or 3 million votes, I'm a contender.
Personally, I definitely think he would be, you know, be politically active.
Just the fact that we have a young black man in debates would have been big, would have exposed a whole lot. The fact that he got revolutionary consciousness and grassroots community consciousness would have brought a whole new set of issues to the table that John Kerry and George Bush ain't talking about.
You know, he would actually be someone that, you know, anybody my age or younger would definitely identify with and almost trust him and follow him in anything that he said to do at this point. And I think he knew that he was moving towards that.
I know for a fact he was on his way to being Makaveli Records. If Tupac would have went independent, that's another reason I think he was assassinated. Tupac would have went independent, that would have changed the whole record industry. That's like Marvin Gaye going independent. That's like the Beatles or Elvis Presley going independent.
Now, what he was going to do with it, not exactly sure, but I definitely think he would be doing something, you know, still in music, but very active politically. I mean, it was in his blood.
For those who knew him and those who studied him, there was no question that Pac was at an apex at the time of his death. There is also no question that he still had a lot more to do.
He was just transitioning to become an